What's happening, listeners? It's your man Dame DNYDC, host of the Two Mics Up podcast. We are here today with some of two of probably amazing people that I have the pleasure of knowing. Many of you have been introduced to Heather Hutchinson of the Sound Mind Collective, but we also have Kristopher Riddick. You know, he's here. This young man, just talking to him off mic. First of all, let's be clear. I've had the pleasure of knowing this young man, but to talk to him off mic and really get to be able to talk to him and hear what he has to say, I thought it was really important to have him join us today here on this episode. We wanted to take some time to get a really like a voter's view of what's happening with the upcoming election. Um, like many of you, probably have made up your minds already, or probably standing in your corner with your hands up, ready to fight. You know what's going to come down on Tuesday. But I pray that things change. I see Lisa over there. I see you shaking and your head bobbing. What you got, sis? What's going on?
I'm just happy to be here. Happy Sunday, guys. Yeah, I'm just everyone is divided. Everyone is pretty much made up their mind. So we just have to wait till Tuesday and see how we will all move collectively with a sound mind,
Okay.
pun intended, moving forward.
Okay. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. So, briefly before we get started, I want to let our guests introduce themselves. And for this first half of the segment, as we go through uh, asking questions back and forth, we're going to go ahead and default to Heather answering questions first, and Kris will follow up answering those questions second. So, if you could, Heather, please take a moment to reintroduce yourself to our listeners. Uh, glad to have you back. So, go right ahead.
Hey, thanks. I'm really glad to be here. I love you guys' show, and I think it's important the conversations you have, and I'm always happy to be a part of them. So, yeah, I'm Heather Hutchinson, and I have an organization called the Sound Mind Collective, which hopefully in the future will have multiple arms. But essentially, to boil it down, is bringing together people who are working towards making sure everybody has the same rights, just civil and human rights in general for racial equity, as well as mental health issues, mass incarceration, all those kinds of things. Those are big issues for me and have been in my life for a long time, and they matter to me. And I think it's important to talk about them, and not just talk about them, but do things to make changes. So I'm glad to be here. We're breathing. It's Sunday. We got a couple more days left. Although I don't think we'll necessarily know anything conclusively by Tuesday. But it feels good to be with people who I know I can count on, and that we're connected in our community, because I think that's crucial right now. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. So, Kris, Mr. Riddick, would you mind taking a few
Yes.
moments to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Kris Riddick. Currently residing in New York City. Originally from Stafford, Virginia. I'm a brand strategist for a small media firm out here, but we work with like a lot of big brands where we make sure that all their digital advertising makes it on like video, tablet, and TV. So I've been doing that for about 7 years now. Raised in the, always being activists, like being active in the community, always giving back. Elisa Middleton is my aunt. You see her shaking her head. So just glad to be on here. I don't have a big business or anything like that, like Heather yet, but very entrepreneurial spirit. So soon come.
Well, thank you, Kris. No, and I will say, don't think of yourself as not being on anyone else's level. You're in your space and where you need to be, and you will go ahead to continue to grow as needed. Because like I said, I'm impressed with this young man. Like I said, I've had the pleasure of knowing him through Elisa, and this young man is sharp. He's smart. Uh, and I'm just proud to be able to have him on the show. Lisa, go ahead. I get that grin. I see that grin. Go ahead.
I'm not going to embarrass him, but he knows how I feel about him, and he's always been bright, even coming up. And his views are very unique, so I think that it's important too, that we do listen to our youth, and we do listen to the younger generation, because they are our future. We shouldn't discount their views because they may be different from ours. And Kristopher and I always had that type of relationship, because he's always been a forward thinker though. And
All
I
right.
am like grinning like a proud auntie,
Yeah,
because
yeah, I
I
see that. That's why I want to go ahead. I want to get you that 30 seconds right there because that's
am.
something to be very proud of. It really is. So we're going to jump in. Like I said, we're going to start. I think Lisa's going to start off with the first couple of set of questions. Like I said, just out of fairness for everyone, I want to give everybody opportunity to express their views because this really is, from we're trying to get a voter's view of what's going on. So we'll start with Heather first in this first section or segment, and then we'll reverse it in a second. So, Lisa, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys, what was your take on the presidential and the vice president debate? What was your like feeling? Were you swayed either way, or how did that impact you at all, if at all?
Yeah, so I saw this question when I you got the information about the show, and I was like, "Oh crap!" Because I didn't watch the first one. I couldn't. Personally, I struggle with intense dislike for the person who currently occupies that position, and I was in a headspace during that period of time where I couldn't. I didn't want to hear any derogatory comments made about, people who I care about, big groups of citizens in our country that often get marginalized from that podium. So I chose to avoid it. I watched on social media and kind of paid attention to see if there were any hot pieces or hot buttons that I missed. And it looks like I missed a circus, and I'm glad I didn't watch it. I've already made up my mind before it was time for the debates, and so I chose not to watch for my own mental health, which I think says a lot about the state of where we're at the moment with the choices that we have and the options that we have. That I know I'm not the only one who made the decision not to watch, because I felt like it would do nothing more than make me angry or be discouraging. So I don't have a good answer for that, because I watched that one. I
Well,
didn't want
thank
to
you
ask
for your
you.
honesty. Look, thank you for your honesty.
Yeah,
Yes,
I watched the
I
vice
agree.
president one. I'll tell you about that in the next question.
Okay. Chris?
So yeah, I watched the first debate and I also watched the last debate. My views on the first debate, it was just like she said, it was a circus. I pretty much was thrown off immediately after he made his stand down and stand by comment. I was in a room full of people, and immediately I heard that, and I knew what he was talking about, and I couldn't even comprehend anything past that point. Like I was stuck because I know what that means on many different levels. So that threw me off 100%. Pretty much after that, I feel like both parties fumbled. Biden wasn't strong enough with his opinions. He was wavering. He was almost looking like he was disagreeing with people that he was originally standing by, playing into Trump's mind game. So that whole thing was just a circus. Once again, just America on a platform, being for the first time being laughed at by a lot of other countries. And I think that was another example of that. And then the second debate, I thought was a lot stronger. I think the lady that was asking the questions was a little bit more precise with her questioning. I think that we got to learn a little bit more about each plan, and that's about it. I think that was the strong points about the second debate, in my opinion, was that we got to hear a little bit more about their plans that we didn't get to hear about in the first debate, because the first debate was just so much cattiness back and forth. So the second debate definitely gave just a little bit more insight on that, but still probably was not that good a debate.
Mhm. Good job.
Well, uh, I'd have to piggyback on that one because I'm just going to keep it real. Both of them were trash. They were just straight trash, garbage. It was ridiculous. And I'll be honest with you. One of the things that Kris said that I really paid attention to, well, two things. The second debate, Biden seemed to be a lot sharper and cleaned up on his fumbles from the first debate because Trump did what Trump does best, and that's to discourage you from even wanting to listen or participate. And that goes into how he does, his presidency with the messages that he sends out to America, specifically Black America. Now, what I will say is the substance. There's something that I look for me that applies to me, which is substance. And when I say me, I mean me, myself, my family, my community, and the laws that are being applied to me and my family in my community. Now, the person that did that and really stuck and really probably swayed me one way or the other was Harris. She was by far, if you would have put the four of them in a room, she by far was the most presidential. She was by far the clearest. She drew the clearest picture. Now, again, whether you like her or not, I'm not going to say I'm a big proponent, but she was what I deemed to talk to my substance. And outside of the fly really winning or being the MVP, she touched and spoke to me as a man of color. But outside of that, everything else was trash.
Okay. Well, thank you. DM, thank you, Mr. Dame.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Let's do it.
Well, I mean, that was my opinion on the whole thing as well. I don't think they swayed anyone one way or the other, like a debate, is initially intended to do. And I just thought that it was sad. It was just sad for the country. As Kris pointed out, we did not look great. And for the vice presidential debate, I know that Kamala got a lot of flack for her facial expressions, and they dragged her for, the way that she was reacting. But honestly, that was her authentic self. I mean, as a woman, she stood her ground as a woman, a Black woman in this forum.
Well, isn't it amazing though how she gets dragged for hers, but no one says anything about Trump and his? I mean,
Yeah, that's how it's programming. It's all mental programming because even me as a Black man, just being honest, some of those opinions that were thrown around on Twitter or thrown around as jokes, I said in my own humble abode, just like, ooh, like she giving me auntie vibes, like, but what's wrong with that? Because at the end of the day, we have another person that's giving the whole world racist vibes, right? And he's our current president. So I even had to check myself in those moments that kind of just like, it's funny, it's, lighthearted, but in a sense, we are once again pushing the agenda that has been programmed into our head and programmed into our community as truth, and it's not truth at all.
Well said. Well said.
I felt like that out of the four of them, all of them had great. I mean, because I watched the other two, the vice president and the last presidential debate. The only person that really didn't have any dramatic, for lack of a better word, facial expressions, I felt was Pence, and that's because he looked half dead. I mean, I'm sorry, he just didn't move much at all. But you had, all the other three, I felt like were responding in at least in some respect of how they would have responded in a regular conversation, that was true to their personalities. And I agree. I don't understand why we were dragging Harris through the mud when the other two men were doing the exact same thing. I mean, that was such garbage. And, I agree with you, Dame, that she was really the only person who stayed on target and on topic the most. And I even noticed her towards the end kind of trying to, follow Pence's lead a little bit by trying to make sure that we all knew about some of her accomplishments, because it was at that point, he wasn't staying on topic anymore either. And I just feel like I don't understand how we've gotten to the place where we've got debates that are happening when nothing is really being discussed. I mean, when you get to the end of these debates, I'm not really sure what it is that they've talked about. They're basically both trying to appeal to their base and let them know that I've got you and I've got you. And and that was it. I don't feel like either one of them laid out much of a plan for any of us that we could really sink our teeth into. And I agree that it's sad. It's disappointing. It's embarrassing.
I think at this point, we're all seeing everything is coming to light that even debates, they're just network competition. Even how they broke down the second debate, it finally pulled the curtain back on that this is just two networks on two different sides competing for airtime, competing for ad space, competing for America viewership. That's all debates are. Like, because at this point, I think they were something at a previous point, and I think they were very informative at a previous point. But at this point, big media has once again plummeted, like done their thing and ran into politics, and it's just completely separated. It's complete circus. It's humor at this point.
Agreed.
Well said.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Did anyone stand out to you? Did anyone, but you already, I think like much of the country, you already knew what
Yeah,
side
I think
you were
everybody
going to
had already
be
made a
out.
decision. Yeah,
Yeah.
this was just like a paperweight. You just put a paperweight on your table, and you just look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So, okay, well.
Yeah, we have, I mean, that's all the time. So they're continually feeding us, information. Whereas 20 years ago, we had to kind of wait for the news articles and the 6 o'clock news and the debates and all that. And now I think, like you said, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Right.
It's kind of tradition, I guess, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
All right.
So, specifically, like, speaking to Trump and Pence, in your opinion, what do you think they've done leading our nation over the last 4 years? Good, bad, indifferent?
That's for me.
Yeah, for you, Heather.
Like with the pandemic, police brutality, prison reform. What do you think that this current administration, in your opinion, has done in those areas?
I think that they have done a fantastic job of filling their pockets. I was talking to a family member yesterday, and we were, sharing a conversation about this, and she was asking me if I had supplies ready in case there were issues next week, and we started talking through it, and we both were just marveling again at how is it that the infection numbers in this pandemic are steadily going up, and yet we have a person in office who has managed to convince a group of our country that it isn't even it's not real. Like, it's not even a real thing. Not only is it that, they think it's been politicized, but they now think it just doesn't exist, or it's just such a small threat that it's not even worth talking about. Like, when I look at the numbers now, again, I don't want to be bombarded with them at all times so that we're terrified. I definitely don't think that living in crazy amount of fear all the time is a healthy way to live. But by the same token, I mean, the fact that the numbers are going up, and I mean, a couple of days ago, I saw it was more than 40 states. How is that not something that you would address? Like, what happened to the presidential, State of the Union conversations that we used to have, where we would have a leader who would stand up and say some things that, even if we didn't vote for that person, at least maybe at the end of that hour would feel a little bit like, even if it's a facade, hey, we're looking into this, we're handling this, so, you can trust us. Like, we don't even have which I don't know if that's good or bad, but we don't even have the facade of somebody trying to look out for us or take care of us. And what's crazy to me is there's still a strong group of people who are chasing along behind him. And I think the group of people that are often chasing along behind him are the ones who are at most risk of not having money in their pockets and of ending up being ill because of pre-existing conditions and not being able to afford the health insurance that they need to take care of the illnesses that COVID can provide. And I was looking again, because one of the questions you guys had there was asking about, what did I think that they had done, if anything. I still have no idea what the healthcare plan is supposed to be. And I think that they know what it's supposed to be. And that's been such a hot button, topic for us for so many years, because we all know it's a mess. And so everybody tries to come up at least with some plan that says, I'm going to make it better than the person before us. But that's all he's saying is, I'm going to make it better than the person before me. But there's no, like, how? What are you doing to make it better? So I think that most things are worse, unfortunately, or if they're not worse, I think what's happened is many things have just been incredibly exposed in a way that some people maybe were naive and didn't realize was bubbling under the surface already.
Mm-hmm. Very good point there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
Yeah. So, kind of like piggybacking off of a point that Heather made is that like the exposure. I don't think Trump did anything to divide the country any deeper than the country was divided. I actually don't think the country is any more divided than it was prior. I think that the country has now drawn a curtain back on people in America that are just racist, and just putting a media spotlight on it bigger than it's ever been before. I don't think that there's any more racist acts going on than there was 30 years prior, just off of history and facts. It's people were getting shot on the same basis that people are getting shot now. It's just the visualization to it. And I think that Trump finally spoke to a classes of people. I think that America sometimes only looks at Black poor Americans as the bottom class of America, and I think that they forget that there's a lot of white poor Americans that feel like they need a just due as well. So I think that Trump was the first person to finally almost be a spokesperson for that person. But I don't think these people, just because of, and I think this happens on both sides. So I don't want to sound like I'm saying whites are uneducated. I think that poor people sometimes are uneducated. And I think that uneducated people make uneducated decisions. So that Trump kept, spewing, bringing jobs back. I'll make, Detroit, Chicago, all these industrial places better again. And this where a lot of white poor Americans live, in the middle of America. And I think that he gave them something to rally behind. And I think that he never delivered. And I think that now these people have a choice to make. They're either going to think that he's going to, deliver in the next 4 years, or he's not. But as far as coronavirus, I think Trump dropped the ball then. I think now he's doing something that humans do sometimes. When you're already so deep in it, what's the problem with making myself seem even worse? I'm already that deep in it. So I think that he's doing that right now. He's just showing that he's acting very immature. It's crazy to see how, your wife comes up to you at the end of the debate and she has a mask on and you're the leader. Like, this is just not good PR. Even if it was a business, if this was your corporation, this is horrible PR, because we do not know which side you stand on right now. So, yeah, I don't know. Trump is he's a mess.
Okay, my words and my exact sentiment. And I think you both Heather and Kris, you both touched to some things that were huge. And one of the things that I do like that I heard was the uneducated part, because uneducated America is huge. That's white and black.
Yeah.
But throughout history, and just to share, it's easier for white America, who controls or has power, to convince an uneducated white person who looks like them to do everything that they can to continue to undermine Black America. That's kind of how that cycle has worked. It continues because they're basically, I guess, is the dangle the carrot in front of the horse. Because we're alike, or we look alike, or we sound alike, that I can do so much more for you, but you'll help me stop them. And that's an undercurrent. And Kris spoke very eloquently about how Trump really just helped unveil what really America is at its core. And when I say America, though, I've said this before to some people who know me. Trump in this core of America is like a dinosaur that's about to die out.
Mhm.
All of this old money and all of these old folks who are in positions of power, this is their last hurrah.
Mhm.
And he's really speaking for them. He's really moving this needle and agenda for them. We're at a point, though, at a tipping point, because when I look across the aisle, though, I still have another dinosaur that really has done nothing for the black agenda or for the black movement. So we're stuck in the crosshairs where no other way to say it. We have to, you, not we, I'm going to speak for myself. I have to choose the lesser of two evils, and morally, I have a problem looking at the guy, excuse what I'm about to say, that likes to grab women by their front parts and laughs at it as locker room banner. But at the same point, you have white women supporting that. So just from a moral standpoint, I have to look at you differently, and that does not jive with my morals and my substance. So I have to choose the lesser of two evils, and this is just me talking. Now, again, I'm not happy about the lesser, but that goes back to how Lisa and I we talk a lot of times on the show about removing ourselves from the table, and I know we'll get to that later. But I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to just kind of share that, my personal take on where we stand with this administration.
So your morals about grabbing women by their vaginas has driven you to vote a different way just because of the attack on women.
But I just use
But
that
we
as one.
have people who don't who say that they vote for this man because of their morals and their belief when it comes to abortion and evangelical Christianity.
So before you go down that
So,
road, though, let me just say, as a man, I can't say nothing about abortion, and I don't think any man should have any right to say or give input on what a woman does with her body because we can never get pregnant. So that's a whole nother.
right, but that's what I'm trying to make the staunch contrast
Okay.
between you saying that you voted on your morals, which is correct, and I totally agree. But then on the other hand, you have people that's voting on their morals for the simple fact that, um, abortion is, against God's will, and God is not for murder. So we come to these situations where people have, and not you, Dame, but I'm just saying the division on each side of the aisle is because morally you can support a man who is misogynist, who's xenophobic, he's everything that you could think of, he's racist, and but you can support him on just the general fact that he is, the one thing is that he is against abortion. But never
Hmm.
mind if you are a Christian, how he has treated women in the past, how he speaks of women, how he even speaks of the incumbent Kamala Harris and any other woman, news women, and all of these things. He calls them monsters, nasty, and all of these derogatory things. But then you have people who will argue that he is a Christian. So it just, your comment just threw that into my head, because it's like, you're right. How could you support someone who abuses women? But then they support him because he is against abortion, which
So,
is the
well,
only line of Christian defense, if you will,
well,
for a back of better
I'll say this
words.
though. As a Christian, I was taught that a sin is a sin, no matter how big it is or how small it is. Murder is murder. And if you call yourself a man or woman of God, how can you hate something that God created? So when I hear people talk about all of these different things, I do not find you to be of my opinion of what a Christian is, because I'm going to forgive and love those who look like me, who are different from me. We can always come to a point, and you and I, we talk about, we can always come to a point where we can agree to disagree. But I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to love you any less. I'm not going to talk about you, and I'm not going to think about you in any other way. And those who spew those things to me they're Bible dumpers, but they're fake.
Mm-hmm.
They're fake Bible. They're hiding behind the Bible. They're not actually
Mm-hmm.
speaking the truth of the Bible.
Mm-hmm. And I
Yeah, I
and I
kind of
do
know.
agree. I agree with Chris. Just to go back to the initial question is, and Heather, that the country has already had this deep seated racial situation. And Donald Trump is just the manifestation of the racist and racism in America. So he just makes people more comfortable in the spewing their hate and things like that. But he's a product of this country, so he is definitely disconnected when it comes to you know black people, the plight of Black America. He's always been disconnected. And then I have people that argue with me constantly and show me pictures of him and Oprah, or him and other Black celebrities, but people don't understand the mind of a racist,
Mhm.
right? Let's get to the mindset of a racist.
Christianity is a mindset, and I sorry to cut you off on um sorry, but it was at the tip of my tongue. Christianity sometimes, and I don't think what the Christian, because I was born a Christian, my grandfather's a pastor. I want to just throw that out there. But what we call ourselves as Christians is a little bit different, is a lot different than what the Christianity that they're talking about. That Christianity is a use of a form of racism. It's been a use of a form of racism. I think it will always be that. It's a very elitist white hierarchy that hides behind a religion, just like any other cult or crazy thing like that. That type. And when we talk about when the Christianity and the Catholic Church, is almost like Democratic Republic. They're both very evil at the top. Not talking about where we're down on our everyday level, modern people, like regular me, you, and whoever's listening to this, talking about high level. These religions are used as racial pawns.
I agree. And just to go back to the point that a racist um, really lets really has the ability of smiling in your face. So when he's around Oprah, you got to remember that these are people with money. These are the people, the okay Black people. These are the people that are, acceptable. So we got to make sure that we do understand, as when it comes to a whole. So when people throw up, oh, how could he be racist when he's hanging out with Oprah and he's hanging out with all of these Black celebrities? And that is because he is an opportunist. So he's going to be in these circles because he likes the spotlight. He likes to be seen with these type of people. But when we're talking about running a country and we're talking about you being the head of state and you're spewing racial undertones, and it's not something that you just been doing. You've been doing this from way back, from when you had to be sued by an activist group in New York City for not allowing Black people into your apartment complexes. You wrote an op-ed for the Central Park young men that you wanted them to be killed. Imagine if you would have got your way. These innocent men, like so many innocent men of color, would be dead today. So we have to keep in mind just the hypocrisy of this man and just the celebrity of this man. He always wanted to be in the spotlight. So now he's in the spotlight and he has power. So he's just going to go with whatever he wants, because as you can see, his administration, they're falling like flies. How many
Mm-hmm.
people have already been fired, or now he's parting ways with Dr. Fauci because Dr. Fauci will refuse to be a puppet. It's just so much. And then you look at the following that he has. The following is just all about white nationalism. We have to call it what it is. It doesn't matter your economic status, or it does not matter your education. As long as my skin can make me better than you, I'm going to stay with this man.
Mm-hmm. Well, you bring up a very good point. Just touching on that, and this kind of really leads into so we've talked about Trump and all of that. So with this division though, in America. You know, do you think the Biden Harris ticket, let's say if they were to win, could they make a change, or is there a way forward for change with a new administration? And I'm going to leave that for Heather.
Yeah. So thought about that question, before coming on today, and I think the most we can expect them to do maybe is give us a minute to breathe. Essentially, I feel like if Trump were to win again, I don't want to speculate, but it would be his last term. Not a lot to lose at that point, right? So that's concerning to me. He wouldn't have to worry about being reelected again, and he'd be getting way up in his ripe old age there. So there's not a lot to lose at that point, which is worrisome. But I do feel like if Biden and Harris were to win, that would give us a minute to inhale and to take a breath and to maybe reset and think through some things. I don't think that they are too radical at all in the things that they're trying to change and that they're trying to tackle. I think we've gotten so way off track in working together as a country that there's a lot of things that are going to need to be addressed, and no one administration, even a healthy one, is going to be able to fix that in 4 years or even 8 years. We've got a lot of issues that have been bubbling under the surface for many administrations. So whoever takes on past 45's occupancy has a large job to take over. I do think that they could help reignite some hope in people who are incredibly discouraged and weary. I think that they can offer some space where people who feel like that there's not much left for them to fight for can feel reinvigorated. And I think that's encouraging. I think it's encouraging for girls and for women and for especially women of color to have Harris in office. I think she is, like you said, Dame, I think she is presidential. I think that Biden has done a lot of things that maybe we wouldn't necessarily want in a president, but I do think at the moment he sees the grossness of the person that he's against and is willing to do some things to make a change and is willing to be counseled. And I don't think that we have someone in office right now who's willing to take anyone's counsel other than his own. So that is encouraging. He might not have the best ideas himself, but I do think that if he surrounds himself with a good administration, that could be beneficial. But I think, like what Kris said, that what's happened now as far as the race issue goes, and this is going to be something that we all have a lot of work to do, especially us as white people, is Trump has made it not just exposed it, but emboldened people who I think maybe wouldn't have spoken out because now it feels like they're doing it with a sense of pride for this country. But the irony is they're doing it thinking that it's a sense of pride in the country while waving a flag that has his name on it, not even the American flag. It's very bizarre. I told my mom yesterday, I said, I don't remember looking in any of my history books and seeing anybody, running down streets or putting on their vehicles a JFK flag. Like, I don't quite understand. I thought this was our country and he's not our king, so that is something that he has made possible for a lot of people who I think maybe didn't even realize that they were racist and probably wouldn't call themselves racist. It's been repackaged again into this like patriotism kind of thing, right? Like what Lisa said, the white nationalism. Of course, they wouldn't call it that, but that 100% is what it is. And he's given them these talking points and these like buzzwords that they love to just hurl right back at you when you come with a logical question to try to break down some of the thought processes. They have these like prepackaged, sound bites to just try to launch at your face that of course rarely have any meaning, but they laugh and run away. I mean, it's this bizarre snowball fight with people who are kind of unarmed. So I don't know. I got off track there a little bit. I don't know that I have a lot of hope as far as the administration per se making big strides in the country. I think what I'm hopeful for in this moment is that a lot of us, myself included, for a lot of years have been kind of riding along, believing that democracy is kind of going to work for us, right? And I think we've all kind of come to this place maybe for the first time and gone, dear God, what have we done? You know, never, ever again should we have two elderly men who at any minute could be in a nursing home making decisions, super wealthy, supposed to be representing all of us sitting here. I mean, this makes zero sense. And if you want to keep touting the whole founding fathers bull crap, this is not what they had in mind in any stretch of the imagination. And since I'm on this soapbox, I'm almost done. America is not a Christian country. I'm so tired of that. And my dad was a pastor and I was raised in the church and I love Jesus, but I don't live in America because it's a Christian country. It's supposed to be a democracy and a place where there's freedom of religion. And, you know, I'm not Jewish. And so I don't want to be held to Jewish standards by law. I'm not Muslim. I don't want to be held to Muslim standards by law, just as they might not want to be held to Christian standards by law, which is one of the reasons America was founded, was to separate that church and state. And so every time I hear those Trump supporters talk about getting it back to a Christian nation, I just want to say, you haven't really read many history books, because this isn't Jesus' country. It's supposed to be a free country for everyone to be able to practice their religion, whether you agree with them or not. And what happened to that? So I could go off for hours. Anyway, that was not a question.
No, that's what we wanted to hear.
Listen, Heather, you hit it. You hit it on the spot, girl.
Aggravating.
Talk your talk. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll back off now. Take it on, Kris.
So, yeah, I knew that Christian one was going to get, all four of us was going to eventually have our opinion on that. So that's funny that popped back around. But to answer the question, I believe in Harris. I believe in Biden in a sense of that they are willing to work with the blacks of America. I was looking for some clever word to use, but I'll just say that they're willing to work with the black humans of America. And I think that in itself is enough. Like Heather said, this has to change in some sense. We cannot keep looking at people that look like the past. The world has just changed. The world is moving so fast forward nowadays that it doesn't make sense to look at it like that. And I think that is something that the Biden administration can do, where they can start to develop a new foundation of government, a new look and feel of government. But that comes with a lot of hard, they're going to have to really make some law changes, hierarchy changes. Some people are going to have to be released from position, and some new people are going to have to come in. And that is just how it has to be. And every administration has done that in some sense. But I think that we need to look at what are every election since Obama, they have been right. Well, I won't even say that, because that is not true. They've always tried to rally up the youth and get the youth engaged in elections. But I feel like for the first time, we have the youth engaged with the biggest media that we have ever had, meaning social media and mass media as commercial, print, and all those different things. And I think that combination has never been seen before. And that combination right there could be a tool of change. And I think that the Biden administration just has more of that look and feel to make that possible. I think, just like I said, that middle America, poor people were able to rally behind Trump. I think that educated young Black Americans that have been to college and had this last 40, 30 years are able to see Harris in themselves. And I think that is a positive push in seeing somebody that is speaking to you, other than the negative push that Trump is spewing and and trying to lead people in a path of white nationalism. um and I just think a lot of just about reform, a lot of reform with prison. The 13th Amendment. I think we need to put more onus on that and really, really start speaking on that more in this next term, and just trying to get that amended, and get it, the 13th Amendment amended again, because that is just a racist law in general. Yes, it freed Black slaves, but it also um enslaved a lot of other people after it. It was a law. The fact of the matter was, at that time, Black people couldn't eat. It was against the law to read. So if I would have read this law and told somebody that, I'm breaking the law. That in itself, this I think starting with that will be the biggest thing for prison reform. And I think those are some of the things that Biden and Harris have been throwing around a lot. So hopefully that happens.
Well,
I
I
was on
mean,
mute.
yeah, you blacked out on it for a second, but in all of that, you know, I will agree with both of you. But I think the biggest change, really, at the end of the day, we live in a country that has fast forwarded 400 plus years, and we're still living by laws that are outdated, antiquated. Now, I don't know if people caught it in the election. One thing that Biden did say, that it would be up to him and Harris to get together with lawmakers in communities at large, all communities, black, white, brown, blue, green, alien, whatever it may be, to come down and sit together and talk about laws. I think it's important for us to move forward as a society. All of these old laws need to be stricken from the record books, and we basically need a true refresh. Now, once you do that, though, I think the next thing is we do have to get rid of these antiquated politicians. People need to open up their minds. We have so much fresh talent. This goes to what Kris was saying. We have so many young uh, candidates and people out here that are bringing fresh and positive energy that's impactful to today. We are living in a different time. Laws from 20 years ago really don't apply anymore. Same thing, once we do that, then we need to structure or restructure how our political system operates. I hate to say it, there's no reason why a judge should be appointed to the bench for life. If you're appointed at 40 years old and you have certain ideals, those ideals last with you for as long as you're on the bench. And this is why you have this uneven inequalities that are happening across the board. The same reason why there's no reason why Mitch McConnell, and I speak on him all the time because I can't stand him. This man is the richest. This man is the richest senator. He's been in office for almost 40 years. He's the richest senator from the poorest state in the union, Kentucky. How does that happen? I just can't see. But again, you have a man who's the whip, basically, who's whipping business for the president, and he's taking advantage of people who are, like Kris said, uneducated. People who don't know, but you see him all the time. He's regurgitated all the time. The media is trying to direct you to who these people are you should be voting for, and that's the problem. People need to get out and educate themselves, like we talk about here. Pick up a book. I sit here the same amount of time you sit here and you will YouTube and IG all of this madness. Take an hour a day and educate yourself about your local politics. Educate yourself about the people who are representing you. And until we start doing these things, it's not going to change. But like I said, I just go back. Biden was the only one that made a reference. It was a small reference, but I heard it because that's important to me. And I think, those are ways that we can make some form of change.
Yeah. Well, I agree too. I agree with everyone, but I feel like a Biden Harris moving forward, or even if the Trump Pence, I mean, we have to, as Black Americans and our allies, we have to start thinking differently. If Trump loses, I agree with Heather that we all need to take a breath and have an aha moment. But if Trump wins, this is our time to rally, to strategize, to mobilize, and to actually have unity amongst ourselves and our allies and how we would proceed moving forward. Because I don't think a Biden Harris ticket is going to change everything. Um, I don't think that having police reform is going to happen under either one of those tickets. A substantial, like something sustainable, police reform. I think that is going to be our mission as Americans moving forward, to have that same kind of energy, whichever administration is in, just to let them know that we're not anymore going to stand by for either party and let the disenfranchisement of Black people go unchallenged anymore. So a Biden Harris ticket would definitely give us a chance to breathe. I think a Biden Harris ticket will definitely be able to have the community rally behind the Black Caucus, who has many of our agendas and the ask that we are asking for right now that has not been passed, that has been denied. So these are the things, like you said, Dane, we have to educate ourselves, educate our community on rallying our support politically behind the Congress and the Senate to change what affects us as people. And the 4 years, if we have 4 years, Jesus, more of this, we have the time to actually work together, to strategize together how we will neither divide ourselves as Black people, as our allies, into either party unless you're speaking our issues, right? So no longer will we blindly vote just because it's, Democrat, or just because it's Republican. We have to, at some point, unite ourselves. We have a lot of allies, a lot of allies. When you look at these marches and these Black Lives Matter movement, there's a lot of allies out there.
Well,
We have one
yeah,
sitting with us right now who I actually met at a Black Lives Matter rally, but we have a lot of allies whose heart is really in the right place. So, with that kind of support, if we can unite and say, listen, this is what we're standing for as a country, we can't really worry about the bigots because they just going to be bigots. But if we pull our agendas together as one block, as one voting block, as one economic block, to say, this is what we're doing. You no longer have this support of this many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people anymore, either party, until we get it together.
agreed. And that's very well said. And that's what we got to push forward to. So at this moment, just going to take a quick second to take a pause. I want to give our sponsor of today's episode a quick shout out. I want to thank 94 Media House, a digital design company, actually our digital design company of the Two Mics Up podcast. They provide quality graphic design, branding, and web design services to help small businesses enhance their brands so that they can look their best at all times. And I want to thank them because they really help keep us fresh and clean, keep us looking sharp and doing what we do. So just wanted to take a moment to go ahead and let our sponsor speak. So now, we're going to move briefly or quickly into the second half. And I just wanted to we'll start with Kris uh, in regards to healthcare and when the candidate spoke the other night. Two things. Uh, if you heard a plan, or which party stood out to you, one, and if the government was to create a vaccine, would you take it?
Hmm.
You. Yeah, previous before the call, me and Dame was chatting, and I had to ask a question. I'm like, what healthcare plan? Which one? Who's who? Like, my question specifically was like, is Biden supporting the Green Plan or not? I don't know much about the healthcare plans. Neither one are making sense to me, and I'm actually figuring out that it's not making sense to me. It's because we're not getting much information on either one of the healthcare plans and what is going to be changed or what is going to be done. So, as far as the healthcare plan, I'm kind of going into this election as one of the things I wasn't really able to use as a weighing on either side I was going to lean on. A lot of my leaning with this election was felt on my personal morals, because I felt like both parties, as far as things to do for a country as a mass, they both have shown that they will fumble the ball. Biden in previous lifetimes, and Trump currently. So healthcare, I wish I was able to give a better answer. I don't really know much about either person's plan. I know that Trump kicks Obama's old plan a lot. I know that Biden speaks on tweaking Obamacare. I know people that had Obamacare that said that it was horrible from the Black community. So I really don't know. And if there was a vaccine, I don't know. We're gonna have to do stats on it.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Heather, what's your take?
So vaccine wise, I'll start with that. I'd rather just keep wearing my mask for a while and watch some other people. I'm sorry. From the history that we've got of vaccinations, for other things that have been effective, from polio to measles and stuff like that. It's taken a long time to get them to a place of full effectiveness. We at this point don't even know what the full ramifications are of getting the coronavirus and then recovering from it. We're seeing that there are people who have potentially lifelong issues with it. So as much as I don't love wearing a mask all the time, and I haven't loved the social distancing stuff, I'm willing to keep doing that, and I'll let some people kind of go on ahead of me.
Y'all go ahead. Let me see, right?
I watch over here. You guys go first. And also from history, I would prefer it if it weren't my Black friends who go first. Just historically, as a country, we haven't done real well with that. So I'm going to need some white people with some good health care to step up first. And if they get sick, maybe they can take care of the symptoms there. But it does make me a little wary, especially since it's become such a talking point for him. He screwed it all up. He can't admit he did anything wrong. So instead of saying, I didn't really know what to do with this pandemic, who would, let's reassess. Instead, he said, don't worry, there's going to be a vaccine. That's a little suspicious in my mind. Anyway, so that's my thought on the vaccine. As far as the healthcare, I agree with Kris. I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about. I feel like that, when we were in past elections, there were some very clear bullet points that we could, repeat and regurgitate to our friends when we're having conversations. And that has not happened this time. I agree with Kris as well. I feel like that Trump has just said over and over that he doesn't like Obamacare, but I think it's because he just likes to say he hates Obama. And so if he says, I hate Obamacare, then his, base is going to be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. We hate it too. So whatever you do, as long as it's not Obamacare, we want what you're doing, even though he isn't saying what he's doing. And then with Biden, I think Biden is kind of like, well, people don't like that Trump is saying that. And I worked with Obama, and it wasn't the best plan. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it just, I'm annoyed. I think he doesn't want to offend Obama. Listen, I absolutely love Barack Obama. I think he's a fantastic man. He has great character and integrity. But there were things he did as a president that weren't my favorite. There were things he did as a president that even were harmful towards Black people. But I think that Biden is in an awkward position of he can't denounce Obamacare, out the gate because he was part of it. So he has to say, I'm going to make it better, but I don't really know what his plan is to make it better. And then everybody's afraid to say, we definitely need universal health care or socialized medicine, because then for some reason, all of a sudden that means that we're all communists. And I don't know. I think that as a whole, as a country, we're uneducated, period, on what types of medication plans and healthcare plans there could possibly be. And no one with a lot of logic and sense is rising to the top to say, listen, I'm going to break it down for all of you guys. Here's the basic of what we've got now. Here's where we want to be headed. And here's a path that's going to get us there. Or here's two paths that's going to get us there. Let's pick the best path. Basically, it's become a who can I get to vote for me the most? And it's not getting any better. So I don't know. I don't know what their plans are. No idea. I pay a lot of premiums and I have insurance and I'm grateful for it. But, it costs me a lot of money every month. And I went through medical bankruptcy because I have a kid who's been chronically ill, so I get it. Like the healthcare issue is a big issue.
I think healthcare in general, I think both parties understand that it's a bigger problem in itself. Just like the fact of understanding it, even kind of like, is just healthcare on a lower basis of getting healthcare at work. Sometimes even understanding what you're picking and what you're paying for. I don't think that and I'm only speaking for myself, but I think that there just needs to be a better understanding of what healthcare is, what it's doing for you, what you're paying for, and what you'll receive from it. It's across the line.
I think that the healthcare in itself, I think the idea of Obamacare was great. I think the implementing of Obamacare was good. The downfall was the internet and doing everything online, and like you said, Kris and Heather, not understanding in layman's terms what you were getting. But the pre-existing conditions, which if you contract COVID-19, is now a pre-existing condition. So in the past, before Obamacare, if you had a pre-existing condition, you were unable to get health care affordably. It was totally unaffordable. So even though Obamacare did not work for a younger generation like yourself, Kris, and your friends, because you guys are young and you're healthy, but you were able to stay on your parents' insurance until you were 26. What Obamacare did was take big business out of healthcare.
Okay.
And that was good because, as you know, when big business gets involved, these things get mucky like they were before. So COVID-19 is now, like I was saying, going to be a pre-existing condition. Right now, the current administration is in the Supreme Court, in federal court, excuse me, right now to get Obamacare overturned. So what that means is that pre-existing conditions would go away. So would the care of pregnant women, far as them getting how we see healthcare go as today. They're mandatory that pregnant women, regardless of if they have health care or not, qualifies for Obamacare, meaning that they can get prenatal treatment. So it's a big, healthcare is huge. It is a big problem in this country because you have so many people that can't afford it, that needed it at that time. And if we roll back Obamacare instead of enhancing and tweaking it, because remember, this is the first time in this country that we've ever seen anything close to everyone being insured. So were there problems with Obamacare? Yes, there were. There were problems. But now that we know the problems, we need to enhance and work on that. We shouldn't be taking Americans off of already healthcare, who especially who have pre-existing conditions, and throwing them by the wayside, because we already know that big pharma is now the new big uh healthcare business, which they always already were, but with Obamacare they somehow inched up, and now they're out of control. So someone needs to take on the whole gamut. And I think that because Joe Biden was involved in Obamacare, he would have the team that would be able to take on the healthcare and tweaking Obamacare to make these premiums come down some, and also to get big pharma, the pharmacies, out of people's um, pocket, because they're making the decisions. The pharmacy is truly making the money. Capitalism is at its best at the highest of everything that we do. So they're making the money. Like Heather says, she has a child. It's okay if your child is diagnosed with something, here swoops in the pharmacist, right? And if you don't have that good coverage, you're looking out of pocket, because even though you may not have a copay for your, or a $5 copay for your medicines, or a $30 copay for your medicine, that means that your premium is higher. So they work hand in hand. So we have to get all of that under control, because nobody should not be able to get medication if they need it. Period.
Well, we put a period on that, and I will agree. And I on this topic, no, I mean on this topic, I'm really short on this topic only because it doesn't really matter at this point. I agree with each and every one of you. It's really, we're living in a time of the have and the have-nots. Either you have it or you don't, and those who have it don't care for those who don't have it. Point blank. Period. I will say Biden again in listening, because I mean I'll be honest with you. I recorded the debacles or debates, or whatever you want to call it, and I went back and I listened to him. So he did touch on tweaking. You know, this is what Chris and I was talking about beforehand, about tweaking Obamacare. And Lisa said it eloquently that he's in a position of prior knowledge of being able to, what I would say, bridge the two. And I'm going to say what most people won't say, as Heather said, touch on socialism, because, or communism, or however you want to call it. If you're going to commune and do something that's best for the community, then I say do it. If you want to dress it up as communism, you can call it whatever you want if that makes you feel comfortable. But we need something that is best for our community at large, our society at large. And if that means providing health care, which is something I think should be an essential for every American to have, period, then call it whatever you want. But Biden, I do agree with Lisa, gives us the best opportunity due to past experience to be able to tweak Obamacare, to get both parties to meet at a financial middle that's agreeable to all Americans.
Right.
And I'm just going to leave it at that point.
Right. Oh, and I didn't answer about the vaccine, because I went
Well,
off into a tingy.
go ahead.
I'm not taking no vaccine. Period.
Well,
no
I mean,
vaccine here.
no, well,
I'm
look,
not taking that.
okay, well, sign me up, because I'm with you and Heather. I will mask up. Look, you thought I was joking before. I've been looking into getting like those full body suits. Remember I was saying that before, with the mask and the tank on the back? Well, that's what I'll be wearing. Y'all go ahead, y'all get a vaccine. You get 3 ears, 4 eyes. You go ahead. Let me see. I'll wait. I'll
Start
pass.
glowing in the dark
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
all that.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't
I'll wait.
trust the government when it comes to vaccine. My
Nope.
skin
Nope.
and my history allows me the discernment of questionability towards the government and vaccine. You sterilize my women in the past under the guise of vaccine, and you gave our men and women syphilis under the guise of a vaccine. So
Yeah.
I say hell no to the no.
I have to take that. I have to take my answer back and just make that a solid no, because my great grandfather was part of the Tuskegee experiment. So just with that in my lineage, I think I'm gonna pass on that.
You had to bring that to the forefront, right? You had to
Yeah, I
remember
had
that.
to remember that happened. That did really happen. So
But you
yeah.
wasn't going to take it anyway, because Auntie would have been on a. You're not
Yeah.
taking that.
We're not gonna allow that to happen. So, so then moving on, and really at this point, you know, from everything that we've talked about today, regardless of who wins or loses, where do we go from here as united a united America? Because now I want to move. I know we touch a lot on Black America. You know, we have our own issues, so I want to put our issues in a box, and we can come back to that. But this as America, you know, where do we go from here?
I think as America, we just have to continue the collective conversation. I've seen that in my generation change so much where, like you said, we have to work with our allies. We have to invite them to the table for our conversations. They have to invite us to the table for their conversations. And we also have to continue to have conversations alone. I feel like that is one of the biggest positives that I'm seeing personally in this whole moving forward. Even with working in corporate America, I'm at a company now that once a week, every Friday, we have a solidarity conversation. And it's not just like that continuous same conversation. With after 3 months of having the conversation, we go back to the drawing board and we say, what's new conversations we can speak about during these solidarity things, so we can always stay fresh and stay, you know, having real conversations with people that look totally different, because we have to get past, you know, just going into work every day or just being able to almost just deal with people in a sense. We have to figure out that that's the problem. We're all just dealing with each other. We all have to just realize that we're all the same. We all can help each other, and we all can pull each other down with our own negative energies as well. So I think that's just the biggest thing for this country. Is just keep the conversations going, keep working together, keep leaning, as Black people, keep leaning on our allies, and our allies keep leaning on us. I know in the sometimes in the beginning, at least like even when this whole Black Lives Matter thing, it was a lot of us were very defensive on like, why do white people keep asking us these questions? What are like, when are they going to have conversations with each other? But they like, I learned that some people aren't aware of racism. Some people were born into it and kind of just, it was always spoon fed to them in a way that they were being brainwashed just as much as Black Americans can say we were brainwashed. So I think that we just all have to just understand that we're all just humans, that we're all going to make, you know, decisions for what could benefit us sometimes, but we also have to look past that and have to see what could benefit, you know, the bigger picture. And that's like the whole thing with like the morals on who people are voting for. Living in New York City, I know a lot of people that voted for Trump just because of business reasons. But it's just very, very hard for me to say, how can you befriend me, or how can I trust you if this person is spitting, you know, racial rhetoric and you want them to lead the country just because it works for your benefit in your business? So I think that's just the biggest thing. Just keep working together, because like we all kind of said in this conversation, the allies are there. The communicative efforts are there. They really, really are. It's just how to keep pushing it more and more.
Well said. Heather?
Yeah, so I think whoever wins, there's a lot of work to do. And I said earlier, maybe the good that's come out of, this last few years has been the realization for a lot of us that it was written, we the people, right? And in a lot of ways, we've abdicated that power to the people who we feel are, I don't want to say untouchable in a way of always getting away with things, although that could be its own conversation. But that we're not touching them in a way that they kind of understand how most of us in the country are living, because they've lived a very different life. And I think what's become crystal clear is that we have to be involved in our own community level in a way that maybe people have never thought about doing before. Something that's become obvious to me is that there's so many more committees and organizations just even in my community, that are open for people to volunteer on, to serve on. Some places, have paid positions that I had no idea that these organizations even existed. And these are organizations, committees, advisory boards that oftentimes are helping to make real decisions about things that are happening in the community where you live. And it's a real hands-on opportunity to start to mold what your community and your environment looks like. And oftentimes working in those communities connects you with people that maybe you wouldn't have been connected with before. And I think, kind of like what Kris said, that connection and those like continued conversations and those places where we keep crossing each other in situations where we think maybe we don't have much in common, and only to find out, like he said, that most of us are more alike than we are different. That's where the change is going to come from. So I think we need to stop looking to these higher ups to change it for us, and we need to start pulling back our power. And I think we've seen that. I mean, we've seen these monuments come down very quickly that have been on the docket to come down for many years, and all of a sudden, the community gets loud enough. And look at that. All of a sudden there's funding and an opportunity for these monuments to come down. And I think we need to recognize how powerful our voice is when we are united and we have a vision and a focus and we're walking towards it together. And no matter who wins and whatever happens next week, whether we think it goes our way or not, that's going to be the only way that we're going to make true change. It's going to be the only way that we see things happen at a high level that are going to affect us down, at a local level, is to start getting involved in our school systems, our organizations, our neighborhoods, go outside of our comfort zones. For those of us who are white, to stop throwing out these, what I said before, these packaged statements, and start listening, like really listen to what's being said, and maybe take the opportunity to think, gosh, if so many people are saying this, maybe it's true. Process that, get involved, and be with people who don't look like you, and start to see what we can do as a united front. And really, at risk of being cheesy, I mean, it really is supposed to be we the people, and that has a lot of power when we move into that as a group.
Yeah. And kind of to bounce off of what you said, Heather, about package statements specifically, it's kind of what me and Dame were talking about before the call, is that just like you said, white people stop rebuttaling those package statements. Us as Black people, we have to find our own onits and stop rebuttaling those package statements as well about ourselves. We have to find and realize that we have to gain confidence as a community and stop rebuttaling things that we were taught by suppressors to each other, and realize that some of these concepts are not true, and that they were put into position to oppress a certain type of person who we are speaking to, Blacks, and that we have to stop packaging those up as well. And that was just really well said, Heather. And I feel like it's on both sides.
Well said.
Well, what do we do moving forward? I think that we need to captivate the moment. Like Heather said, we're in a movement. I feel like we're in an era of civil rights movement right now. And I think that moving forward, regardless of the outcome, is that we need to keep moving. And whether keep moving looks locally, whether it's you speaking out on these type of platforms, you have to get involved and you have to move forward. I think that what we do from here is going to depend on our level of involvement, our level of tenacity, and our level of commitment to see this thing through. We cannot say that we are the United States when we're not even united. So we need to get back to we the people. And even though it was not intended for we, what didn't include women, didn't include Black people, it didn't include anyone but white men who own property. But we should take those ideals and make them our own, and say that we, the people in the United States, demand to be we the people, collectively, together, as one and moving forward. If we keep this fight up, not only are people on the ground in Black Lives Matter movement, we need to keep it, like Heather said, locally, politically, community wise. We need to be the change that we are out here screaming that we are wanting. So we need to, the change needs to come from within, because out of the fire comes a phoenix, always comes from within. We cannot wait for anyone to save us. We the people, need to be united together, hand in hand, battling. We can't get sidetracked with racism and Christianity and this and that. We have a common goal for equity, for equality, and for the pursuit of happiness for everyone. And that's the track that we need to be staying on moving forward.
Oh boy, that one's gonna be tough to follow up because, man, first of all, each and every one of you, I want to say thank you. And reason why I'm saying thank you to all of you is really because what we're talking about right here. You know, where do we go from here? And honestly, this is the example that I like to use. You know, anybody listening or anybody that takes the time to watch, it's people like Heather, it's people like Kris that are willing to do something different. You're willing to get outside of your comfort zone to, and I don't want to call it, this is not an agenda. This is something that's necessary for us to go, as Lisa just so eloquently said, united, we the people, moving forward. What we have to do to make change, not only for the Black and brown community, but for America, period. We have allies all across the board. We all have voices that are important, no matter how big or small you think you are. Everyone's voice is important. And this message couldn't be sent or even received unless you have people like yourself willing to be involved, willing to not only push the needle, but pass the baton. This information, if you close your eyes today, it really serves us no purpose. I think you've shorted yourself and you've shorted, our community as a whole. And as I think back to everything that we've talked about today in closing with this topic, you all are the true leaders that we talk about. When people say, "Oh, nobody's out here doing anything," then they're wrong. You guys are helping to push that needle, helping to move America forward. And I really just hope that this continues, as Lisa says. I hope, regardless of what happens on Tuesday, that we continue, no matter who you who you like, who you don't like. I hope this conversation continues, and we are in a different time. We're going to have to stay in the forefront of the fight, and I hope that you both will continue to help Lisa and I continue with that fight
Mhm.
and continue to push it forward. And I thank you both for your time today. Really appreciate
Mhm.
it.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, guys. I do want to take this time to thank both of you for coming. This was a good panel. I think that both of you are amazing people. Heather, I support everything that you do or touch because I just feel like what you do is important and it is from the heart. And nephew, I love you, and I just think that I'm going to support anything that you do because I know your mind, I know your heart, I know your spirit, and I just glad that you took this opportunity to speak for your generation and to come on this show. So I think it was a good show, and I thank you all. Maybe we'll be reconvening next week to see what is going on because
Yeah.
I
We'll
can't.
we'll
We'll
jump
see.
into that. Lisa, we'll talk after. But I do want to again give both Heather and Kris an opportunity to share any information, any social media information that they like with our listeners before we go. So I'm going to go ahead and Heather, we're going to let ladies first. Please take a moment to go ahead and share your information with our listeners.
All right. You guys can find me on Facebook if you want. I have a public profile, so I don't mind at all if you want to friend me, and that's just under Heather Hutchinson. You can find me on Instagram under the same name, or you can also find me at the Sound Mind Collective, which I'm trying to be a little better about posting there and keep you guys up to date. But I'd love to connect with people out there. I'd love to hear from people. I love it when people message me and ask me questions, especially my fellow white people who might be too afraid to ask questions in the open. I get some good questions behind the scenes, and like kind of like what Lisa said, we just keep pushing the ball forward, right? So I want to do my part. Feel free to reach out to me, and I would really welcome that. So that's my info.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Yeah, thanks.
All right,
Yeah.
Kris.
I could be reached on Instagram at Bodega Kris, Bodega, Kris with a K, Kris. A little bit of Facebook. It's just my full name, Kris Riddick. That's about it.
All right. Well, again, Kris, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you really taking the time out, man. We really needed to hear that. I wanted to hear a young man perspective from our community. And Lise, do you have anything going on? Anything coming up in the near future?
No, I don't
No.
think so. And if I did, I probably forgot right now. Oh, no, here I
Yeah,
go.
but say,
I'm
come on now.
back. I'm back.
Mhm.
I'm back. Okay. So, yes, guys, I am partnering with Serve and Lois Ann Help House. We are trying to feed the Lois Ann Hope House, let me slow down, is a homeless shelter locally here in the Fredericksburg area, family shelter. We are definitely trying to provide Thanksgiving meals for them. So we are in need of turkeys or hams, any side items, canned items, anything that you can offer, no matter how big or small. And also the Serve. Serve is a organization that helps needy families, and because it's the holidays, again, my organization, the United Black Council, has partnered up with one of the board members, Crystal Harmon, for Serve. So we are trying to get turkeys and hams and Thanksgiving sides for needy families. So if you are able to either provide any of those items or a store gift card. So if you don't have the time to go or you don't want to go, then we would gladly take that. And you can look that information up on my Facebook, which is Alisa Middleton Facebook, and Instagram, it's Ali, ALI 2 1992, or you can find it on the United Black Council, which is the United Black Council on Facebook.
Alrighty then. That is great news. I think we participated in that. I wanted to make sure that you were able to get that information out to our
Yes.
listeners. Yeah, I think that's really important for us to support, you and Serve and everything else that's going on in the community. I think that's really important. So
Hmm.
thank you for sharing that. And before we go, listeners, you can always follow us, Two Mics Up, online at www.twomicsup.com. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, IG, and Twitter at Two Mics Up. You can follow me, Dame DNYDC. I'm on Facebook, IG, Twitter, Dame DNYDC. Holler at me if you got something to say. And like we always do at this time, stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.
Mike's out.